Hello, welcome to the intake tool. This is where we train the AI model to evaluate the validation tests that compliance will use to approve a document, and also where we define the specific transactions attributes that the AI model will extract from a document to send to DealDesk. We already have folders for the compliance trainings for most documents in their respective state and province folders. This demo will show you how to train an already existing compliance document for DealDesk extractions, and I will also show you how to add a new document that is purely a transactions document that needs data extracted. Going into the North Carolina folder, you can see all the documents that are already trained by compliance. Currently, most of these documents are flagged as compliance documents only, so the first step in the process is flagging the document as a transactions document as well. We go to Edit Document and check the transaction checkbox. We also need to assign a role so that Task Center assigns these tasks appropriately. Then save the changes. Next, we need to create a new version of the document we'll be training. This document has gone through a lot of testing, so as you can see, we've gone through a lot of versions. The version marked published is the one currently being used in production for this document. For most documents, there will only be one published version, but if your state or province allows multiple versions for a specific document, you will see multiple published versions, and you will need to create your own version for all of them. The intake tool divides a document into pages, and in each page we define its validations and its extractions. Here you see all the validation tests that are already defined by the compliance team. Note that the mapped transaction field column is empty. This is where you'll define which field in the document corresponds to an attribute in DealDesk. This is the list of the predefined attributes that DealDesk is expecting. Now, to begin, we go back to the version page and make a copy of our published version to edit it. By design, we cannot edit or delete a published version, hence all the inactive versions that you see in here. So we make a copy, update it, and we will publish this new version to be used in production. We go to the three-dot menu and edit document. This is the warning we receive if we ever try to edit a published version. In our case, we click on Create Copy and Edit. Now we have a version with a status of training. This means that it's ready for us to define the fields and train the AI model. The copy function copies all the documents for that version that we need for training and testing. For training, we need a blank version of the document, and for testing, we need a completed and signed sample of the document. We'll see where we need those as we go through the demo. Here are the 3 pages for this document, and we'll go into the first one again. Same validation tests we saw before. This document already has compliance tests for the fields that we need to define as extractions. Just as before, we find the existing fields and pick the corresponding attribute from the drop-down menu. The eye shows us the columns we can view, and if you want, you can remove columns for a cleaner interface. In some states or provinces, compliance may not be testing a field that you need. In that case, we need to add a test. We can add a test from the Add Rule menu, but that's more advanced. The easier way would be to duplicate a row close to the one you want to add. For example, let's say I want to add number 3, term of agreement, after the existing property description test. I can duplicate it using the blue button and rename the field name to something descriptive that the model can find in the document. In this case, term of agreement date. And then we pick out transaction attributes from our dropdown. For this buyer's representation agreement, we are only going to define the commission, and as you can see, in this document there are 4 distinct boxes that can apply and define the commission. We will do our best given what we currently have implemented, but this will be up to the North Carolina team and brokerage ops to decide if we need to implement some new logic. For compliance, they only care that these boxes are not empty, and that's what they're testing. The purple rows are validations for the checkboxes, and each checkbox is a parent of a dependent child test for the details. For example, if the non-refundable retainer checkbox is checked, the child below for non-refundable retainer amount is now required and will fail if it's empty. For our purposes here, we only care about the amount row and not the checkbox rows. We map transaction fields for all 4 and save this page. We can review the remaining pages to see if there's anything in there we may need and keep adding transaction fields. But for our purposes here, we're done. Now we go back to the page layout and begin testing. This is the interface where we would need the signed sample to test against the extraction fields that we just added. According to the fields we introduced, this document should give us values for bonus number 2 and for the commission percentage. We begin the test by pressing the test validation button above and wait for the results. The time varies from half a minute to a few minutes depending on the document, but here, we're done. Here we're seeing the results of the compliance validation tests and the validation score this document received, which for our current purposes don't mean much. However, we can also see the tab for the deal desk fields we've extracted, and as you can see, we've extracted bonus number 2 and the commission percentage just like we planned. Our final step in the process is to approve this training for production, and we'll take it from there. Back in the version page, we can see that now this version is flagged as ready. We can also see the previous published version is now marked as inactive. This won't happen until we actually publish to production. Right now, we're on a weekly cadence for publishing all new trainings Tuesdays. Now we're going to add a new document from scratch. And just like we did before, add a version for the transaction extractions. Let me just grab the name. And the form number. Here we check this as a transaction document and select the role just like we did previously. Let's find it and create a version now. Last time we copied the version, so we didn't need to add or edit any of this information. This time we need to provide everything. The version is the version noted in the document. If there's no version, add NA in capitals as the version. This is version 7, 2024. The validity dates are there in case you want to limit when the training is valid. For example, you only want an older version of this document to be valid until the end of the month. This assignment role is in case you're a manager creating the document in the intake tool and you are delegating the training to someone else. If not, you can just put yourself. Now we add the documents. We can add both the blank and the sample here, but at this point only the blank is required. We can add the sample when we're testing. Here I'm adding both. When we create a new version with a new blank document, the in progress status means that the AI model is evaluating and will provide its best guess as to the fields that it thinks you will need. I would say that it's getting better, but it's still not perfect, so please review before publishing. This also takes a few minutes, so please be patient. The status will change to training when it's ready. It generated 20 VRs or validation rules for page 1, 6 for page 2, and so on. For our purposes regarding the deal desk extractions, we only care if a field that we need was not generated. Then we add it like we did before. Other than that, we leave everything as is and just pick our transaction fields. In this case, it generated the fields we need for the commission, but it also guessed that we will need closing buyer names, which we don't. So we remove those and move on. Like before, we check the other pages before moving on to testing. go back and to testing and press test validations and wait for the response again. Sometimes the model will have difficulties classifying the document. This means that the title may be vague, or there may be multiple documents in the state with similar sounding names that it can't decide which to use. So we help it out. We go up to Add Title, and once we make sure that the document title is correct, we add subtitles. Subtitles are unique little bits of information that only exist in this document to differentiate it from others. Now it classified it. Let's check the deal desk fields. It looks like we left some unnecessary transaction field tests in the training. We only want the commission on page 1 for this document. Let's go get rid of them. Of course, they're on the last page. We remove them, and then we go back to testing the validations. And there we go. Just the fields we need. And just like that, this is ready to publish to production. Approved. We hope this demo is helpful. And please remember that we have office hours Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. PST. Also, feel free to book a meeting with me if you can't make that time. Okay? Thank you.